I was excited when you first came to me. You were telling me you were doing a parable. And you were doing a business parable about a family. I thought it was going to be like a family of aardvarks. So I envisioned, the blue aardvark and all of these, all of these crazy animals, because a fable or a parable can sometimes involve animals like Aesop's fables and stuff. But one of the reasons I was excited is that I think a parable is a wonderful vehicle for telling a business story, particularly a story where you need somebody to understand, some pretty tough concepts. Business concepts, at least in my book, can be pretty dry. So I'm curious why you chose a parable.
Well, the reason I chose a parable is the books that I find the easiest to consume when it comes to business principles are fables or parables. For example, Patrick Lencioni is probably the king of the genre. And he has written a bunch of really, really good books, which are all except one written as fables or parables about lessons that he wants to teach. And reading about these lessons and stories gets to help you see how it's actually applied in his world.
Right.
And it's a wonderful way of teaching things. There's a thing called the theory of constraints, which Alea, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, wrote in a book called The Goal, another parable about a manufacturing company who has horrible manufacturing problems. And they use the theory of constraints, which is a form of lean thinking, to fix that. Then we have Steve Farber, who has written Better Than Yourself and The Radical Leap, where he talks about love, energy, audacity, and proof as being the key to produce a great business. As it turns out, Steve used to be the CEO for the Tom Peters Group, so he knows that stuff really well. And it's a great story that he's got. And Better Than Yourself, he has another story about how, if you're in business, your goal really should be to make the people who work with you better than you are. And he has a whole thing around that. It's so much easier to do that than to write, as my sister says, a boring business book, which I never finish.
Oh, yeah. All right. So writing a parable, which is, I would call it a novel light. It has certain elements that are creative writing that you have to have the elements of setting and character and dialogue and internal thought. You have to have those components when you're writing a parable. So what did you find challenging about essentially writing a novel?
Well, first of all, I've never done it before. So, I've written over 1,000 blog posts, which I could have probably taken a bunch of my blog posts and made a book out of it. I may do that in the future at some point, but if you try to read 80 blog posts, you're going to get bored pretty quickly. And I'm not likely going to be able to teach some lessons that I think need to be taught. In the sustainable, we have 5 lessons we're trying to teach. There's an overarching lesson, which is to have value in the business, you have to have a sustainable business.